Fact to fact here to talk about orangutans, the lesser known of our great ancestors. The history of the orangutan dates back 12 to 15 million years when it branched off from the New World monkeys. This is how it set itself up to be the first great ape. And mind you, at the time this was pretty good considering monkeys were the competition. New World monkeys and gibbon monkeys predated the orangutan but lacked the evolutionary brain power to become a great ape. Though New World monkeys might be a topic for another video. And the great ape, being as great as it was, split into two different subspecies, the Sumatran orangutan and the Bornean orangutan. It's suggested that this happened 400,000 to 2 million years ago, which isn't a very long time at all. The area they covered would have looked a little something like this, covering from New Delhi in northern India all the way to Myanmar in southern Asia. They then headed south to the Sumatran island and the Bornean island, heading as far south as the Java Islands. This grand expanse that they covered slowly shrank down to the Sumatran and Bornean islands, and this happened over the next 12,500 years. And one question that might get asked is, how did they get to these islands? There are documented cases of orangutans doing certain things, but swimming is not one they like to do without extreme caution. It seems in adolescence that they are initially afraid of swimming in water, but as they grow older, they start to understand that they can use the water to their advantage. In these special circumstances, specifically with captive orangutans, they can be trained to learn special tasks. And this is where they get the saying, monkey see, monkey do. There's actually an interesting video shot in a Myrtle Beach sanctuary where a lady teaches these 4 orangutans to swim. She started off at a young age by bathing them, and slowly they grew to love the water. And so with their ability to maintain themselves in shallow waters, as well as the area being prone to severe storms, there's a very likely chance that they were sucked away to a nearing island, and this is how their population spread. And now that we know the species of orangutan, let's get a little more into it and figure out if they have any differences or what those differences might be. Now, starting with the obvious, the Sumatran orangutan is the one most people will think of if they're asked what an orangutan might look like. And with the larger, more dominant males, sporting much flatter, rounder faces, they find themselves at the center of attention way more often. And this means when you search up orangutan, oftentimes it is of a Sumatran because of their exaggerated features. Now, other than look, there are a few things that set these guys apart. One being that the Sumatran jungle spends 95% of their time in the treetops. This is mainly due to the fact that there is an active tiger population in the Sumatran jungles. And a sad fact is that there is only about 45 to 55,000 orangutan left on these islands. About 15,000 Sumatran and about 35 to 45,000 Bornean orangutan. Now, there are multiple subspecies of both Bornean and Sumatran, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to keep it short and keep it to these 2 species in this video. Looking at some of these photos of orangutans, I find myself in a pure trance in their eyes. Some of the facial features of our ancient cousins truly resemble ourselves, which makes it that much harder to read that the Sumatran are critically endangered and the Bornean are endangered species. Another relatable fact is that orangutans can grow 4 to 6 feet tall, and some of the adult dominant males can grow up to 300 pounds. Another similarity when placed side by side is hands. The human hand is actually almost the exact same width as an orangutan's hand, but they sport longer fingers and shorter thumbs to really help them get around the jungle. Females don't have the ability to reproduce until about the age of 15 or 16, whereas adult males need to wait until the age of about 20. Now, this isn't because they haven't hit puberty. Something just needs to get a little bit bigger, if you know what I'm saying. Their phalanges, that's what I'm saying. Now, the phalanges relate to those cheek pads. The Sumatran, how it has a much rounder face, that's essentially what I'm referring to. To be a mature reproducing male, you need to have impressive phalanges, otherwise the girls just won't even look at you. And other major similarities are in the reproduction and ovulation period. An orangutan mother can ovulate for 29 to 31 days, as well as hold child for about 8.5 months, which is strikingly similar to human rates. A major reason why orangutans can't keep up with the rate of deforestation is because the rate that they reproduce. They can take up to 8 years to produce another offspring, and this is because it takes about 7 years to rear the young from a previous birth. The reason being for this is because of how dangerous this forest can be. There are a lot of lethal plants and lethal animals that they have to be aware of. Now, there are documented cases of other or older orangutan taking on or adopting juvenile orangutan. Here's an example in this video. The International Animal Rescue stepped in and housed her with Monty, her new mom. And for the first 2 years of life, a baby relies on its mother entirely for mobility and its source of food. Fortunately, this worked wonders and Monty took to her instantly. She quickly adopted her as her own. And as you can see from the video, she clings to Monty even when the cameraman gets close and she tries to investigate, just because Monty is her safety blanket and would be in nature. Hopefully, because of the IAR, these two can actually make it back to nature, fully rehabilitated, and have offspring of their own one day. The skills that Monty will pass on to this young one are essential to make it back onto these islands, because she needs to teach her how to avoid dangerous plants and dangerous animals. Here's an example of a group of juvenile orangutan being shown exactly what to do when they find a snake. In primates, the ability to recognize snakes is inherent, but the ability to detect that they are dangerous is learned. The fear of snakes must be taught. And then there's another crucial skill, how to make a nest to stay off the ground at night, which can prove to be pretty funny. However, in nature, it's more likely that these juvenile orangutan would learn vicariously through their mother rather than being taught specifically how, because orangutan need to make a new nest every night. As for a list of things they don't avoid, here's a list of foods that they eat. Fruits like the durian, the rambutan, the dragon fruit, the taran, and most importantly the fig, make up the staples of their diet. Now this makes up 60 to 80% of their diet in a good season, whereas when there's scarcity it's more like 16%. The second major staple being leaves, which can make up to 25%, sometimes even higher when facing scarcity of fruit. Some of the other foods they might eat are bugs, bark, honey, birds' eggs, and even smaller animals that they might be able to catch. Thanks to fruit being the main focus of their diet and them constantly being on the move in search for more, it's suggested that they're the sole dispersers of seeds for some fruits. And now that we've figured out how this species exists, don't forget to comment if I've missed anything, and also like this video if it's one of your favorite animals too. We can move on to some more interesting facts and stories about orangutans. Now, let's start with some Bornean folklore and how the orangutan got their name. In Malay or Indonesian, the word orang means people and the word utan means forest. So, in translation, people of the forest, which might come with a little more backstory than you might think. In an article on Discover Wildlife, a man tells them the story of how their grandfather turned into an orangutan and up and left into the forest. Now, he says, in his old age, he grew long hair from his arms and liked to swing from the longhouse beam. Finally, he just walked out into the forest. Others in the room agreed with this statement, and one of the men actually said that they were there when it happened. The next day, they go out into the rainforest in search of orangutan. The guide taking them says, orangutans can be our friends, and that there are countless stories about orangutans helping people in trouble in the rainforest. If you get lost, an orangutan can show you the way home, and many travelers have escaped starvation because the orangutan showed them what to eat. Pretty insane, huh? This leads some locals to believe that they're not just friends, but actually family, real family. Another interesting story relating to this one in their lore is that if you kill an orangutan, you will suffer tremendous nightmares that you will be reincarnated into one of these orangutan. This legend is tied to the earlier one about the grandfather, in which he said he had to kill the orangutan, where he later turned into one. This taboo against killing orangutans is one of the safeguarding factors in the conservatory world. It's also suggested that it may help in the prevention of the extinction of orangutans. One of the last things I'd like to touch on is how you yourself could adopt an orangutan, because there are lots of conservatory efforts happening right now. If it's something that you can afford and something that you feel inspired to do, you can go ahead to these links in the description and read the descriptions of the biographies yourself and decide if you'd like to adopt an orangutan. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the destruction of the rainforest and how you yourself might be able to help in this cause. The deforestation in Borneo is mainly driven by illegal logging and the expansion of palm oil and pulpwood plantations. And the worst of these three is the palm oil plantations, as there's a growing need for palm oil in commercial products today. With that being said, you can find these products in your grocery stores today, and one thing that may be easier said than done for some is avoiding these products entirely. I myself am guilty of buying Doritos and Sun Chips, Lay's products sometimes, and have to remind myself not to. Some organizations are focused on Borneo as a rainforest and the operation as a whole. If you'd like to support those operations, please go to the links in the description and try and donate whatever you can or whatever you can afford. Now, that's all I have to cover on orangutans for today, but if there's any other interesting topics or something that you want me to cover, maybe something I missed, please comment down below. Don't forget to like and make sure you subscribe so you can catch me next time. Take care.